डियर नेहा, फर्स्ट ईयर से ही आप मुझे बहुत पसंद हो और देखो ये हमारी डेस्टिनी है कि आपका रोल नंबर 35 और मेरा रोल नंबर 36। 2 साल तक हिम्मत जुटाने के बाद आज मैं आपसे पूछना चाहता हूं, विल यू बी माई वैलेंटाइन? विल यू? ये मैं नहीं, ये पूछना चाहता है। मेरा तो रोल नंबर 20 है ना भाई, गो फॉर इट।
भाई जब लड़की से बात करने का कॉन्फिडेंस नहीं है तो क्यों अपनी और इसकी बेइज्जती करवा रहा है?
ओए आजा, खड़ा रही। क्या हो बे? नहीं क्या हो? क्या दिक्कत क्या हो गई तुम लोगों को? किस बात की हंसी आ रही है? भाई कम से कम बंदा कोशिश तो कर रहा है। हाँ माना हम लोग तुम्हारी तरह बड़े शहरों से नहीं आते हैं, एमटीवी की जगह दूरदर्शन देख के बड़े हुए हैं, बचपन से कचौड़ी खाई है हमने। तुम जैसे क्रोसॉन वाली औलादे नहीं है हम। और नहीं है भाई इतना कॉन्फिडेंस कि लड़की से सीधा जाके खुल के बात कर सके, नहीं है। और होगा भी कैसे? हमारे स्कूल में लड़का लड़की बात करना तो दूर की बात, हमारे सेक्शन तक अलग होते थे। और गलती से किसी लड़की से बात कर भी ली ना हमने, तो हमारे घर पहुंचने से पहले हमारी रिपोर्ट घर पहुंच जाती थी। और हमारे पेरेंट्स तुम्हारे पेरेंट्स की तरह ओ क्यूट करके नहीं बुलाते थे, ओ कूट देते थे। अरे बाप जमाने में कभी नहीं सोचा था यार वैलेंटाइन डे मनाएंगे, तो मना रहे हैं ना, कोशिश तो कर रहे हैं। और भाई तुम कब तक मैं तुम्हारे लेटर पढ़ूंगा यार? देख भाई, बात करने का कॉन्फिडेंस तो खुद ही डेवलप करना पड़ेगा। पहले तो इलोएलो ऐप पे जा, वहां पे लाइव चैट रूम में लोगों से बात करना सीख। उनसे सीख जो तुम्हें जज ना करे, तुम्हारी खिल्ली ना उड़ाए। चल अब
ओए रुक, जब इलोएलो पर बात करके कॉन्फिडेंस आ जाए ना तब बता देना डेट पर कहाँ लेके जा रहा है।
इलोएलो पर होती है नए लोगों के साथ लाइव चैट रूम्स पर बातें। कोई भी ग्रुप कॉल ज्वाइन करो और नए दोस्त बनाओ।
जो इलोएलो खोलेगा खुल के बोलेगा।
Thank you so much for having me here, Karan, Anjali. It's a major honor. I want to start with a confession that it's really fun to have a deck and present when you're not asking for money or you're raising. So all founders can relate in that sense. Okay, given that given that content is the theme and so many of you folks are aspiring builders, venturing out, bootstrapped, starting their own, I thought I'll break this down into 3 things. I'll talk a little bit about the creator economy and what role we are trying to play in it, what insights have we seen within that. Secondly, a little bit about Eloelo's journey, our story, our scale, etc. And leave you with some takeaways of what were our learnings that could help you while you're building your 0 to 1 or 1 to 10 journeys, wherever you might be in that entire cycle, right? So without further ado, let me start with, there have been so many reports on the creator economy, right? Like this is the largest space in India. There are 10 million creators. There are so many creators who are doing this full time. The first disclaimer I want to start this with is that there's a good chance that anything and everything that's been spoken about or read about within the creator economy has been a bit of a perspective or an over-exaggeration given our lens in which how we've seen it. And I just want to be very candid and share that there's a very different picture while you're building this. And as a founder within that space, what were some of the things that I was able to discover firsthand, which could be useful as you start thinking about content or creator monetization. The first thing that we realized, and we started the first version of what is the current Eloelo in somewhere around March 2021. And I'll show you the initial version of how the app used to look, etc. That's always a very fond memory to look at. But the first thing we realized is that there's a massive Pareto. And we watch a Tanmay Bhatt video, or we watch a different kind of a Mr. Beast video, and we feel that somebody has built Prime, somebody has launched this video, and hence creators are monetizing at scale. But the truth is very different on ground, right? Like 95, and I may be wrong, it might be even larger, 95 to 96% creators actually do not monetize. And creator monetization is a very, very strong problem statement. So when I was leaving Flipkart, in Flipkart, there was a lot of experiments we were trying on video commerce. We were trying different things on monetization. And we realized even at that time that this is going to be a very, very hard problem to solve. because of the ecosystem, because of how there was never something set up for creators to directly monetize from audiences. So this was the first problem statement that really excited us and said that if there is one thing that we could dedicate our lives to in terms of building, that could be the big problem statement that genuinely solve for creator monetization and genuinely solve for the creator middle class of monetization, because the top 3%, the top 5% problems were already solved. How did we sort of try to go deeper into that, right? We basically broke this down into multiple problem statements. The first myth that we had in the market and we tried to bust was there's nothing like brand deals. I mean, brand deals would go to the top 2 to 3% creators at best. And those creators would get it, some would get it at a barter, some would get it at another scale altogether. But that wasn't something that the rest of the 98% could have any access to. So that didn't seem like an attractive enough monetization avenue. And I'm talking about back in 2021, right? The second big thing was trying to build something without gatekeepers is hard. Most of the creator monetization models had various approval engines in between. There's either an ad-led model which does not scale and an algorithm will determine whether you get discovery or not. There was very few ways for creators to directly get access to audiences and monetize. And that felt like the first principle that we wanted to imbibe. And just the whole principle was, how does a creator get to actually monetize directly from their audiences? That led us to understanding the third layer of this problem statement, that everyone was trying to build platforms, nobody was building tools. And tools is the hardest part of building a kick-ass creator economy platform, right? Like, you still have so many people who create content on TikTok and use a VPN, create content on TikTok and upload it elsewhere. Why? Because the best tools were built there, and we just realized that very early on in our journey that investing in tools is going to be a huge part of this journey that most people have missed out. And of course, the latest trending question in this entire space is, will AI replace me? Will there be companions? Will there be editors? The answer is both yes and no. That actually makes a creator think deeper and deeper about their craft and what value they could offer. So was it all gloomy, or were we able to see some opportunities and white spaces where we could actually build and add value? The answer is we were able to see a lot of white spaces when we built it, and ironically the screen turned white to sort of show those white spaces. So within that, we identified a few quadrants where we said, these are the areas where we feel the creator economy can be dissected into, and these would be the areas where multiple large billion-dollar opportunities could exist. The way we looked at this as a framework was divide the market between products that were doing interactive entertainment, non-interactive, which could be, let's say, video, audio, etc., and divide that between entertainment and utilitarian offerings like education, astrology, etc., right? And we sort of plotted companies at all sides of the quadrant. Of course, I keep updating this always and always as we start building and seeing more and more entrants. For us, the most exciting part of this quadrant was the top right, where we felt the entire space of building in interactive entertainment was a white space. Still continues to be a very relatively large white space for us. And we felt that if there is a tool or a product which is built at the intersection of interactive entertainment, creators and games, that could be something very interesting where creators could monetize directly from their audiences, build a sustainable livelihood, and then the platform which were enabling this would have its own network effects and grow on from there. That was the big insight. And however, when I add it as a disclaimer, I would say that there are opportunities across each realm of this quadrant space, right? Like, there have been multiple large companies built in non-interactive entertainment, multiple being built in non-interactive but utility spaces in education, in astrology, learning, many sort of news, etc. So that was one framework that we used and said that, could there be something that is built here? And that was sort of the whole genesis of how Eloelo came in. A little bit about how we started going about building this, and I'll spend like a minute on this. The way we named it Eloelo was interesting. And this is the first version of the app and how we started. This is back in 2021. That's Yash, who leads product for us. He's sitting here. That's me at an earlier lifetime. And how we started was very interesting. Our first version of the product had nothing to do with live streams. We used to do creator commerce, and we used to enable creators to sell stuff through short videos And as an engagement hack, we had added a live game called Musical Chairs at that time, where we said if the creator were to do something live and actually provide rewards to their top users, maybe those rewards would be redeemed and people would buy a lot more. That was the growth loop that we had tried. It was almost like a growth hack that we had thought of at that time, saying that how about we blend these games and enable commerce even further. It sounds so surreal at that time, and this is how it used to look. This is the first version of how it used to look. This was the creator who was hosting a game. She hosted it. At the time, there were some 15, 20 winners. We had not even figured out how to get a creator into the full screen at that time. We were struggling with live. We were struggling with how does information relay. Do we use Agora? Do we build our own? Do we use some other tool? There were multiple challenges in that first version, and that was the reality of starting up. Like, you don't have the answers. You don't know anything about what you're building. It's a completely new space. Kept figuring out, kept sort of pushing the envelope, going deeper into the rabbit hole, started building live games where this was the version of quiz games, etc. Then started building more and more live, where it was about live astrology, live singing, live chat. Very interestingly, the name Eloelo was built on the words hello, hello. And we felt, and I can see a lot of you smiling about that. So the reason was Eloelo, essentially, the way we had thought of the platform was this needs to be a place which is welcoming. It should be almost like a digital third place where outside of your home and outside of your work, if it's somebody who's in college, it could be outside of the place where they are learning and outside of the place where they are typically hanging out. There has to be a place where you can unwind, you can meet people, you can engage. And in India, in tier 2, tier 3, that place will have to be digital because the offline infrastructure has not been built in a manner where people can truly do that. And that was the reason why we named it so. We started building it in that manner. And from then to now, the product has evolved a lot. That's broadly the scale and where we are at now. So if you want to think about what we are building, think of it as a live TV where anyone is given their primetime show. You can come, you can host your own live show, you can interact, there are multiple gamified elements, right from battles to games to interactions between creators. And the one thesis that we stayed true to was you can monetize directly from the audiences. So it was very simple for us, stay true to that thesis that creators can build without gatekeepers, directly monetize from their end users, and we end up building something that we feel proud of to show to our parents and to everyone. So that default made us invest in trust and safety, invest in moderation, invest in all checks and balances to ensure that the platform scales beyond just regular numbers. And now, I mean, the scale has become fairly large, etc., etc. But that's sort of been like the journey where we've been at. Just to give you some sense of where we are at in terms of scale now, it's been now close to about 12 months of unlocking monetization. In fact, I remember sometime in May 2024, the first WhatsApp that I had got from my product manager when we launched monetization was, Saurabh, it was 4:40 p.m. I was at an airport and he said, ₹2 ka pehla pack big gaya. And we had almost gone crazy because we felt, oh shit, somebody has purchased from this platform. And then 4:43 p.m. we got another notification, दूसरा pack big gaya, इस बार ₹9 का pack बिका है. And I mean, for a company which was scaling and all of that, the first instance of monetization, the kind of, it got tears to some of our eyes, it got happiness because payment flows were earlier failing, so many things were breaking. And when that happened, we realized that, okay, the first hurdle is crossed and now we start building from there. From then to now, we've now reached close to about 2.2 million paying users. We are live in about 8 languages. A majority of our business is now non-Hindi. So that's a big sort of an insight. And the thing that I'm proud of and the way we started this presentation as well is that we are constantly building products for the middle India. A product which has been very proud of building for the Desi audiences. A lot of us will relate to them. A lot of us may not be able to relate, but building for them and for creators who are able to earn an actual livelihood. So roughly about 12,000 creators get paid from us every month based on their live streams and the revenue they earn. And they earn a sizable enough income now that most of them are doing this full time. So that was the whole thought, that if they can truly embrace this as a full-time occupation, we would have done something which is slightly needle moving for their life. And of course, for the fancy number, we are now reaching a 30 million ARR, hoping to close this year at 70, 80, give or take. So that scale of revenue, etc., in the first 12 months has been, I mean, due credit to the team. Few members of the team are sitting here. Few are working there to ensure that this number goes further ahead. What have been some of the sort of ways in which we've thought about it and how are we building this in future? The last 2 points that I would just make is that the goal for us at all points of time has been to build a lasting and enduring company. You would have seen multiple companies in content, in media, which have a very low shelf life because this space has a big challenge. You never really know the user problem statement. It's not like I'm searching for a cab. It's not like I'm trying to book something which I'm in an urgent need for. So the problem statement solutions become more psychological rather than just observational and problem solving, right? So that's one part. And the second part was, what kind of a company do you want to build? And the word we always would say is that we understand boredom, we understand loneliness, we understand all of these problem statements like escapism that people go through. But the idea is to build a very large media entertainment company built from India for the world. And now we are building more extension use cases, more products. So for us, the phase one was very simple. It was about cracking PMF, hitting to a number where we know there is some amount of free to paid conversion, some amount of numbers that are happening which make us feel that this product has a why to exist within that. The second phase is what we are sort of living right now, which is trying to hit more newer use cases, adjacent cases, micro apps, etc. And then expansion and other sort of objectives. Something that I want to sort of spend time with you, and this is like my last talking point, is for all the founders and builders here. Here I don't want to talk much about Eloelo, but really want to talk about some of the learnings that you might have in your journey of building and how that can sort of be valuable the way you think about it. Some of the things that we realized while building this was, number one, whenever you build in the media entertainment, and a lot of you will relate to this, you have to think of the unstated problem statements rather than thinking of something very tangible, right? So things like escapism, things like loneliness, the answers don't lie in very obvious solutions. The answers lie in truly observing user problem statements. I'll give you an example. In India, a lot of users don't trust apps, right? So the first thing we built while we were launching this version in 2022 was we made login optional. So we created this entire flow where if you want to log in, you log in, or you could just skip, enter a live. When you trust the product is where you go for login. And that just changed our entire onboarding and activation funnel because we realized we are dealing with a low trust user who's going to give this product at best 30 seconds. And in that 30 seconds, if he doesn't get one note of value add, he's going to uninstall the product. So that was the first big thing that we sort of looked at. The second big thing as we started scaling, we realized, and that's true for any two-sided marketplace, is that you need to solve for a very sticky supply, and then the demand sort of follows. That was the big kicker for us, that anytime you're, like prior to this, I was with Flipkart, and I realized that if you don't build good selection, any amount of user acquisition is not going to solve it. So I was outside chatting with some of you. A lot of you asked me questions on user acquisition, etc. The short answer is that if your supply is good, if your genuine experience has good engagement time, and you've built the right sort of product, the organic loops will follow. And that was the big one for us. Our initial entire growth loop came from creators who would go live. They would put it on their Instagram story saying, "मैं Eloelo पे आ रहा हूँ शाम को 8 बजे." And people would click that link and come in. Because we had raised very little at the start. So it had to be organic, otherwise it wouldn't have scaled. The third one is something that me and Yash, we often sort of debate. And there's a big, Yash is our product head who's sort of here. The big thing that we realized in product building is that a lot of people talk about MVPs, that just ship something, ship an MVP, ship the first thing. For us internally, we always call it a version 1 instead of an MVP, because your user doesn't care whether it's an MVP or a final thing. He's going to look at it with the same discerning lens. So something that could be of value as you think about it is that how do you build a minimum delightful product? A product which has at least that bare minimum experience you wanted to give the consumer. It shouldn't be glitchy tech. It shouldn't be product which breaks at funnels. The time to convert can't be high. So that was the first standard that we built in the product. I remember seeing a lot of versions of the app that we had to pull back, which we felt this doesn't meet that kind of an experience. So shipping fast. And the second learning we had over there was, instead of just looking at your gut, how much can you look at true A/B testing data and make decisions? So we used to use a lot of tools at a point of time for A/B testing, and now we are proud enough to have built everything in-house, including our own data lake, including our own analytics engine, our own A/B testing engine, to just ensure that everything sort of scales at the scale at which we are at. And the last point I want to make is that all the numbers, everything we've sort of spoken about, a big factor that we sort of look at in consumer tech is a lot of you will be asked, what's your D7 retention? What's your D30 retention? What's your engagement time? What's your M1, M6? I think after having launched monetization, the one big metric that we started focusing on a lot, and that changed a lot for us in how we started thinking about, was your free to paid conversion. Because I think that spoke a lot about what percentage of your MAUs are actually converting, how many are actually becoming power users, etc. And to each his own. So for us, if I just go back to these sort of things that we were doing, this number would not have happened, this scale would not have happened had those fundamentals not been looked at and solved for. So in short, I would basically just say as a summary that if you're looking at building in this space or building in entertainment, content, gaming, media, I think these are fantastic spaces and very, very large blue oceans exist, as long as there's a lot of fundamentals that go into that, and it takes a lot of time. Like for us, it took 3 years of having just going through iterations and iterations of the product before we were confident that now is where everything is scaling enough and we want to launch the first version of monetization. And it felt like the bamboo tree example, right? That you keep nurturing it for a lot of years and suddenly it grows so fast. So that's something that happened to us. So the 0 to 30 million journey happened in like 12, 13 months. But very few people know that there was a 36-month journey before that where it was just pain, struggles, going through multiple pivots, multiple versions of the app and iterations. So that's broadly been a small note from my end to you, and over to Anjali for the next step. Thank you so much, guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that honest presentation, and almost like a behind the scenes and blast from the past. I think I'm sure as you were putting up those slides, I think Yash and Anmol and me were literally grinning at each other, reminiscing about some of those days back in the office. I know I have a very tight 15 minutes to run this, and as we were chatting outside with everyone in the audience, I managed to aggregate a few questions, and I think I'll start from that phases that you put out and take us through. Really, I know looking back we always say hindsight is 20/20, but take us through phase 1 and when you feel you're getting PMF, or simply what was your definition of PMF for Eloelo?
Yeah, so thank you for that. Our definition of PMF for Eloelo was very interesting. Back when we had started off and when we did our first live room, it was very hard because there is no global comparable. Like if you're building something, let's say you're building an OTT app, you can at least get some data that what is the retention, what happens, what is the free to paid. In streaming, there were no comparables at that time. So for us, we had 2 metrics that we would look at. And at that time, of course, we didn't understand anything about user acquisition. We couldn't run a Google or Facebook ad to save our life, right? So we had something very simple. Our creators would go live. We had a bunch of challenges. We had a bunch of things on the app. And we realized that there is a genuine organic acquisition that is happening. If you have organic users who are coming to your product at scale, at some scale at that time, we knew that there is something sticky about this that people are sharing, which is why these folks are coming in and sticking on the app and actually bringing in others. So one was organic. The second thing for us was app keep. that if people are keeping this and there is a D1, D7 which is healthy and above your industry's average, you have some sort of retention and you don't have a leaky funnel which you'll constantly need to keep replenishing. These were the first phase 1 indicators for us. But the beauty within that phase, and I would be lying if I say that it was so hunky-dory, because I remember calling Instagram creators, YouTubers, so many not knowing about us and saying, we don't have money to give you minimum guarantees, but this is a new interesting product. This is being built, and this was COVID, by the way. The second wave had hit in 2021, so we were all at home. We are all figuring out how do we work remotely, how do we do this. And at that time, convincing these creators to go live and seeing the first set of creators was amazing. So I remember sitting in office and all of us looking at, there was a creator who was playing the guitar on a live stream and we were just watching in awe at that time. So something like that, when it happened, we realized we've cracked something in supply where creators would spend meaningful time to this product. They would not end the live. The live that we had requested was 30 minutes. They would continue.
Yeah. How do you get the first believers on the creator side? I know one of the learnings was that you resolve supply first, but given, like you said, no one trusts any new platform and you were literally starting from nowhere, how did you convince the first few creators to come on board?
The honest answer is we just pushed very hard. We kept calling people. I mean, we come from, all of us, the core team. We are not people who've built startups before this. So it was right from reaching out to investors to reaching out to creators to anything on user acquisition. We were learning everything on the fly. We don't even come from backgrounds where we've seen a startup being built in front of us, so we know the entire playbook. I came from Flipkart, which was a very different sort of scale and setup. So everything was about using first principles and going after it. Our hack around this was very simple. We knew that a lot of creators don't have any revenue streams, right? And we knew for a fact that the type of creators we want are micro and nano creators who are between 2K to 10K, 20K on Instagram and YouTube. And thankfully, it was very simple. There were multiple engines to sort of reach out to them. We would cold DM everyone. I mean, we cold DM'd like 800 people every 3-4 hours. And even if 10 would reply, we are having a great day at that time. And through those 10, we were able to get 5, 6, and that was the initial start. Then we started setting up people. We understood what the micro creator network model is, the MCN model, where there are agencies who also manage this. So then eventually we started becoming more formalized. But the initial idea of getting the first few believers was just telling them that this is the product. If you like it, just try it once. And you just have to try it for a 10-minute live stream. Those 10-minute live streams would usually extend to 40-50 minutes. And we knew that the tools are right for creators to enjoy their presence.
So I want to talk a little about the toolkit, right? And you spoke about it on your presentation, you alluded to it in terms of when did you think, I remember from the very beginning actually, you had like a set of tools and it wasn't a open-ended marketplace in the supply side where any creator can just log in and start live streaming, right? They were not only clear guardrails in terms of what you can present, but they were also, let's say, categories and these playbooks and toolkits that you had given them in terms of how they live stream and what they choose to live, which category they want to live stream in. But take us through why you chose to build that, because at that point of time, there were actually a lot of just log in and start live streaming or a lot of UGC-led platforms that was just upload your short format video, async, of course. But take us through building those toolkits. And I feel that was a big part of why your engagement and retention was so high and why retention was so sticky. But take us to the first playbooks and how have you constantly stayed on top of, inventing and reinventing that wheel?
Yeah, I think the first word that I would, and it's a great question, the first word I would want to address is the word UGC. A lot of times we think of UGC as low quality, but the real answer is that the end user will not spend time on any product that he finds low quality. And of course, the definition of quality will change depending on where you're from, what you seek, etc. So most of our users who we realized were using the product a lot wanted it for relatability. So imagine if you speak Bengali and you have a creator who's speaking your language, they greet you in their local language and bring you as a co-streamer. It's immensely status uplifting. It feels good. It feels acknowledged. Those were the things that we were going after. For that, we realized that we created this category what we would call as PUGC, which is semi-user generated. So create power users or create these semi-professional creators. So before you go live, we would assign an agency or a cam, we would train, we would have a small module, we would build a lot of tooltips. And within the product, we added 3 very simple tools. One was anything and everything around how do you sound better, how do you look better, so filters, audio filters, everything, music players. Number 2 was trust and safety, that because it's live and it's instantaneous live, I can't delay the broadcast. So you should feel like as a creator, it's your own Roblox setup, that you could invite people, you could disinvite, you could customize it the way you want. And third, as we scaled and towards the last sort of 12 months, building monetization and gamification opportunities. So that became the focus. And I would just sort of underscore that with the fact that this is true for any sort of two-sided marketplace I've seen, that unless you've built supply which people really want, people care about, the demand would just drop off. So I think investing in tools, investing in some amount of R&D there as well, because we didn't have the playbook of building these tools. If I tell you short videos, within short videos, these tools were already built, because TikTok had set that playbook and we could just understand. Within live, those tools were never built. And even creators were unclear that this is what I want, so you just had to try. So we honestly just A/B tested so many things. And right now, the version that you see, there are 100 versions that have been discarded which did not work. So just measured everything, got something live. If the creator was sticking on and if there was watch time of users which was beyond average, we would stick with that and measure it over a period of time. So that's usually the
You
playbook.
churn out creators as well. I'm sure that there's a playbook there in terms of their performance. You also spoke about that phase 2 now on unlocking monetization and the grueling 36 months journey and the backstory to today's 30 million ARR. I think a lot of founders in the room had this one question, especially in today's fundraising environment, on when do you decide to turn on that monetization switch, and when, like, what were the thought processes for you, and especially given the you have to constantly keep fundraising given the burn of consumer tech. How do you convince a board or incoming investors, if I might, almost like a cheeky question here, but how do you really as a founder take that call of pushing out monetization? You pushed it out till you were, what, 70, 80 million downloads. That's huge scale, right? You're already a top 10 app. But if you had to rewind and reset to today's environment, what's your advice to founders in this dilemma of keep growing or start monetization? Growth versus revenue, yeah.
I think in hindsight, I now feel it's not a versus point, it's an and point, because you have to grow and you have to monetize. In hindsight, I would have started it earlier if I had the benefit of this hindsight. The thankful nature of our company has been that our board, everyone has been super supportive, because we were always very clear about our 3 principles which we constantly advocate. We'll monetize for creators, we'll build it in a very safe and trusted way, no ads, direct user monetization at scale. So that remained. The good thing that we had done in 2022 and 2023 was, while full-fledged monetization was not on, through our virtual currency, we had started testing what free-to-paid is going to look like, because it was a whole new playbook in India. Remember, at that time, microtransactions was not such a big thing. Virtual gifting, gamification, these were just concepts. They had not become as mainstream as what you read about at this point of time. So it was just honestly about A/Bing everything, trying out certain formats that work and don't work, and launching when we feel that you have a free-to-paid confidence that this is the user base that is going to convert because I've built something sticky. So it was about 8 to 12 months of rigorously following. I remember all the virtual gifts we have right now and what we were able to build. We had launched that with our virtual currencies at that time. And we were just observing user demand. We were observing if the user is going the extra mile to share the app to earn the virtual currency. Is the creator gratifying? Is there an actual game that is happening which is engaging? Is there retention of people who are using these coins? Once we had these cohorts identified, we were actually fairly clear that now we would just be able to sort of scale any point of time. It was then when we decided, I think the first decision that was taken in this company was Jan to Feb of 24, where we said, let's switch on. I remember so many people were divided at that time. Maybe we should wait for a few more months. Somebody said, no, you're already late. You should start at this point of time. It was a very interesting time. And May is when we sort of, then it really took off. First month, courtesy of what you said, like because we had a user base, our first month of monetization, we had hit $1 million in ARR. And then sort of the journey. So for us, in hindsight, having built distribution was the key unlock, and having built supply, which was scalable across languages. But for a lot of builders here who are asking this question, I would say that to each his own. If you're at a stage where cash flows are very critical and you want to sort of monetize, figuring out that one use case which is the most sticky and which has the best retention, best engagement, monetizing that, according to me, has the best value add. Like if you're an audio platform, you know that this is what people are coming in for. Testing a paywall, testing a power user behavior or microtransactions could be the right way to go about it, because what I also realize is that there is no right time. I mean, as a founder, so much of it is gut and A/B, because you will just know after seeing. For me, it was just behavior that we would notice saying, "यार अब engagement इतना ज़्यादा हो गया, अब कर दे." It used to be conversations we would have कि अब करते हैं, अब
Why
बहुत
did you decide packs and prepaid packs like VAS style, telecom inspired prepaid packs and virtual gifting versus say ads?
Yeah. So this came from a very fundamental belief, and it's a belief that I continue to have, that I don't think, and I would go out on a limb, none of the products that we are building or aspire to build have any ad monetization in mind, because having worked at Flipkart and having built ads for Flipkart, I understood that it's very hard to compete with Google, Facebook, Amazon, Flipkart, now Zepto, many others, Hotstar, because ads will go where the largest distribution lies. And the CPMs in India were not attractive enough for a company to sustain through just ads. So we realized ye nahi chalega, and we could have switched on multiple tools where we could have switched on something and said ads will start flowing in. Our mouths have always been large, but we felt this would be something that would do two things which were negative. One, get us out of the user monetization loop and think that how are we optimizing for an advertiser, which was not the reason why this company was built, because we wanted to build it for creators to monetize directly from audiences. तो हम तो हमारा principle ही तोड़ देंगे if we are saying कि अब यही बना दो, which we wanted to unbundle YouTube and say that यहाँ पे ये खराब है, let's build that on Eloelo and build it honestly. तो वो तो बनता ही नहीं had we launched yet another advertising platform. Second, Eloelo has a very strong power user behavior that could be seen in watch times as well. Like power users will spend close to about 95 minutes on the app on a daily basis. Their DAU by MAU was very high. Everything was not. So we knew that there is going to be stickiness and retention for this cohort that monetizes. Hence, we did not go for the ad approach. And in hindsight, any new products as well that we experiment, we never think of ads around it. It's always user first. Why virtual currencies and why those packs? Because we felt that people would enjoy this product if we focus on high frequency microtransactions as opposed to like a one-time thing which is a commitment barrier for people. So, and that worked. We started with a 2 rupee pack, a 9 rupee pack, and it goes on to like 30,000-40,000 if you're a power user. So that entire journey was built.
Awesome, and I see Bisu and Rohit almost staring me high. So last question, what's next for Eloelo and why is your time now?
Yeah, why is our time now? I think as an investor, you should answer this question instead of us answering this question. But what I would say is that I think if you take the macro picture, right, if India has to become a very large economy, consumer tech in India has to thrive, and it will thrive through multiple playbooks. A lot of it will be OTT, a lot of it will be streaming, a lot of it will be games, a lot of other sectors will have to grow. One would have to monetize not just from Indian audiences, but audiences abroad as well to sort of really grow this. Why we feel we are at a good stage is because we invested a lot of time in building capabilities. We entered an area where we feel barrier to entry is very high because it's very hard to build a streaming platform. The tech is extremely complex. Building games, monetization is it's not something that you can source and just start very quickly. So that was the first aspect why we felt very confident about doing what we are doing. Second, having built this across languages, it gave us a moat because from day one we were obsessed about building for every local language, because we felt that somebody who speaks Telugu would want to talk to another user or another creator who speaks Telugu, and the retentions there were beyond any normal curve. So having seen micro scale adoption across vernacular towns of India gave us a lot of happiness and revenue. And now it's not just about a 30 million ARR or a 100 million ARR. It was about the fact that power users as in paying users are sticking. Our adjacent use cases of monetization could be multiple spaces that we enter, have a very strong belief, because we want our creators now to do more things, hopefully become stars in their own right. Like you've seen TikTok stars, you've seen YouTubers who you've seen idolized. Hopefully some of these streamers are able to get into other things, dramas of their own things, and sort of scale from there. So now building a lot of adjacent use cases, and the goal is to build diversified entertainment experiences for multiple audiences across India, Indian diaspora, etc. as we scale. And hopefully one step at a time. Yeah, I mean, the team is here, so we are still at day one of our journey.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Saurabh, for joining us. And I will now hand over to Raj. We have a small token of appreciation for you. Just allow Raj to give that to me. Thank you so much. Can we have a huge round of applause for Saurabh? Saurabh's going to stay around later, so we'll...